Made all season long at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. One-week fantasy means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Got a player who's hurt? No problem. Injuries won't derail your shot at victory because it's like a new season every week, so you're never stuck with the same players. Pick your team in minutes, and you could be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000, and a new millionaire has been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day just playing fantasy football at DraftKings. Head to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play free in the $10 million Fantasy Football World Championships. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. Joined by Seth Klein of Razzball.com and FantasyPros.com. Seth, you know, with the DraftKings, these new one-week leagues, does it at all adjust how you give advice, or do you, as far as, you know, how people draft week in, week out? How do you advise people in these one-week leagues that exist now?
Well, it's a much different strategy, obviously, but I advise people the same way. Actually, sometimes it's a little more complicated, to be honest, as far as advice-wise. If someone's asking me about a seasonal league, you know, should I start this player or this player? I always do the research. I don't usually quick answer, but once I look really quickly at the stats and matchups, there's an answer. But with the daily leagues, you need to see more. Well, how much money can you save on this guy? What are your alternatives? Can you get rid of one receiver to give yourself $500 extra bucks to upgrade that running back? It's kind of a thing where most of the time the person asking me the question has to show me their lineup, oftentimes, or tell me who they have in. It's not easy to just make a decision on one player unless you kind of see who else they have.
What kind of, you know, when if there's a person that, do you ever get somebody that tweets you, like if you said your goal is about 80%, you're about in the 80% range. Do you ever get negative feedback or tweets from disgruntled fans, and how do you respond to those people?
I don't get too many. I get most of the answers or the questions pretty close. I would say I'm in the 80 to 85% range most weeks. So I don't get too much negative feedback, and most of my followers have been following me for a while, and if I'm off 1 week with an answer, they know that previous 12 weeks I helped them out. They cut me some slack, but you get the disgruntled people once in a while, and it's unfortunate, but these people do exist. It's the same kind of people that will tweet the players' accounts when someone has a bad game. I mean, can you imagine, like, people actually think that tweeting, you had a terrible game, LaShawn McCoy, I'm going to tweet you and tell you how much of a jerk you are for losing my fantasy league. Like, do you think he cares? It's ridiculous that these people, and I've seen some, like, threats where it's one thing to, I mean, it's not even one thing. And you shouldn't ever tweet someone, it's basically telling someone that their job cost you, you know, and in the end you're losing, what, $100 or something like that. It's just really inappropriate. When it's happened to me before, I've seen it happen to lots of people, and I'd say that in most cases, the people that get angry about that and make it personal, they need to reevaluate their priorities and maybe see a therapist, because you're the one asking me advice. If you don't want the advice, don't ask me. But I'd say that overall, I have pretty good following. They understand. I think they're pretty nice to me most of the time. Once in a while, I've seen oh, well, that guy didn't have a good game. Well, all right, sorry, nothing I can tell you. I did the research for you, the same research that you could have done and on your own, and I tried to help you. That's all I can do. I'm not getting paid by you to do this, and I wish you had won. I wish you had won, and I didn't pick the guy to make you lose on purpose. And I'm sorry you didn't win. That's pretty much what I can do. I never respond in a way that's going to start something. It's just not worth my time. I'm not about Twitter drama. I see every day these people getting in fights on Twitter, and you know what? I stay out of that. I keep my cool. Move on to the next one, kind of thing. This is not going to get upset about somebody that I don't know or have never met or really honestly don't care about.
One thing I'm really good at is when I see those threats or something, I'm really good at dropping a second grenade into that mix. Like whenever there's Twitter drama, I just drop a quick tweet grenade and then I bail as soon as possible. I just sign out of Twitter.
Make the situation worse.
Yeah, I like to see those situations get worse, and I drop the grenade, mute the people, so then I don't see the responses, and it works out great.
Okay.
But
I had some guy today harass me over something. It was the most ridiculous thing. I tweeted the score of the Jets-Titans game in the first quarter was 5-3, and I said some joke, a play on the Jets. I said the Mets pitching is okay, but they really had a hard time scoring this year, because it was like a baseball score. And then some guy that doesn't even follow me, I don't know, I looked at his timeline, it looked like he was kind of seeking out people. He had these people once in a while, and what's wrong with this person? You look, and they've tweeted 18 people about the same thing, yelling at them. But this guy says, "Oh, great! Now, 600 people tweeted this 45 minutes ago." I was like, "All right." I tweeted back. I said, "I'm sorry, I disturbed you this afternoon." And then he wrote back. He called me a lemming and said something. I said, "I'm sorry, but I didn't see these other tweets. I made a joke. Why are you getting so angry?" And I don't know. It's just people, for whatever reason, I don't know, something in their life is bothering them, or their relationships, or their job, or whatever it is, and they become big people when they don't say it to your face, and that's their way of getting out their anger. But it's kind of sad to see sometimes.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, the people that, I'll tweet something about whether it'll be, I tweet a lot of borderline inappropriate or inappropriate stuff, and it's always interesting to me, because I never hashtag anything. But when somebody who doesn't follow me and has it wasn't retweeted or anything, and then somebody responds to it, it's always interesting to me how they found that specific tweet. If I tweeted something about Van Halen 3, and somebody comes across it, it's like, how the hell did you... A Gary Sharon band? Are you kidding me? As far as, going into, I guess, fantasy football off season, are you planning anything big for next year for drafts, or how do you do drafts? Do you try to keep it as low key as possible so it works out the best for you? How do you do that?
Yeah, my drafts are pretty low key. I actually none of my leagues are local. I have a few friends in some of my leagues that I've known from high school or college that are in my leagues, but I have friends or people in my leagues throughout the country, and it would be fun to kind of have a live draft where everyone hangs out and does all that, but in the end, there aren't really enough people local that I can do that. So I make it fun. We have home pages for everything and all that, but it's nothing it's nothing like some of the crazy stuff you see where people go to Vegas to do their draft or, all that kind of stuff.
I feel like if I'm not big into fantasy. Actually, I'm terrible at fantasy. But if and it might come across as not very surprising to you with the questions I'm asking. But if I did a fantasy draft in Vegas, I feel like that would be just a disaster. With how many distractions there are around, my drafts, whenever I do drafts, it's a nightmare. At the end, it's like, man, I should have just done auto draft at the end. And in Vegas, I feel like there would be so many distractions around me, I would just wind up with the worst possible team ever in fantasy.
It's true. It could be. I like I said, I've never done it. I think those leagues, though, I think from what I've heard, that's sort of part of the fun, where maybe there is a guy who screws up the pick because he's a little hungover or drunk or whatever it may be. I heard a story of a friend of mine who was in a league where anytime they had to ask if it was their turn or if someone was still on the board, they had to take a shot. So that all that asking if it's their turn and which player is still available every time they have to take a shot, that I would think that would only get worse. But fun stuff like that.
Are you into fantasy baseball?
Indeed, I am. Fantasy baseball is actually my favorite fantasy sport. It's
really?
The one I spend the most time on.
That many lineups?
What's that?
Setting that many lineups, that's your favorite?
Yeah. I grew up playing baseball. We discussed this before. It's baseball is my passion. I've been playing fantasy baseball long as I played baseball most of my life, and I just love the intricacy of baseball with each little stat and, watching the batters and the pitchers and getting an idea of who's getting hot and cold and picking up guys, streaming guys, and, every which thing you do, one little thing, going into Sunday and being up by a 1/10 of a percentage point in WHIP, and you say, damn, but I'm down 3 strikeouts. Do I start this pitcher and risk I could lose both? There's so much strategy involved, and to be honest, it's really not for the faint of heart. You definitely can't fake fantasy baseball like you really can in football. I love fantasy football, but in the end, it becomes a sport it's a fantasy sport for the masses. Every work has a league. Every person's in a league these days, and if you can win a league without playing for your players, those people forget to take out the guys on buys, and you can still win. It shows that there's definitely a lot less skill involved. It's a lot of luck. Baseball, it takes guts, it takes balls, and it takes patience because it's a long season, and it's not for the faint of heart, let's just say that. But I really love it. I look forward to it, and it's definitely the league I spend the most time on. I don't necessarily do the most teams. I think football, it's easier to do more teams because there's less team management, but baseball is the one I take the most serious.
Well, with baseball, how has the introduction of advanced stats and sabermetrics, how has that affected fantasy baseball?
It affects everything. Baseball is one of those sports where things on the outside aren't always how they appear. We see a lot of pitchers that haven't been good their entire career have a fantastic first month of the season. Everyone's like, wow, this guy's amazing. I got to pick him up. But then you look at the other stuff, the BABIP against, the FIP, the XFIP, the ballpark factors. And you're like, well, this is probably a guy where it's not going to last. So things like that, hot streaks, players, trends. Some players, players aren't usually going to have a bad season